Welcome to your interview. I'm Neve. Has this ever happened to you? Oh, the camera's wobbling. If it has, you've probably been in an interview situation and they're terrifying, to be honest. Hi, I'm Neve. I make videos about autism. I hope to soon be making videos about ADHD, OCD, and other things I have. Today's video I'm going to be talking about autism and job interviews, because just the word job interview fills me with a sense of sadness. As you know, it's more a sense of fear, and I thought what better way to help people trying to get a job in this capitalist world than giving you a few tips. There is a worryingly low number of autistic people in employment, and job interviews are probably no small part of that, mostly because they are navigating a social maze. I will also be including some tips for employers employing autistic people and how you can help with the process of interviewing autistic people at the end of the video, so I will link that in the timestamps, which are always in the description. So firstly, think about what jobs you would like to do. So the thing about us autistic people is that we have special interests. So think about your special interest. I will be doing a video on that in the future. I got it planned. Am I meant to have a hole there? I don't know. Think about what job you would like to work in, because trust me when I say trying to prepare for an interview where you don't really like the job, you're just kind of doing it to get a job, is like the worst thing in the world. You will not want to study for it, particularly if you also have ADHD like me, and we tend to hyperfixate on particular aspects of life, and if that isn't part of the job you're applying for, you're going to find it very stressful and basically like revising for an exam that you don't even want to do and you don't even have to take if you don't want to. So firstly, think about the job areas that you would like to go into. Maybe you could do like a mind map or something. If you're just applying for a job to like get money, I know that for a fact because I worked in retail for 4 years. There were parts of that job that was like, this is not autism friendly, and no one had any idea I had it because I forgot to disclose it during application. This is what the first tip is. Please disclose that you have autism. I know it can be a bit scary because you think people are going to judge you, but honestly it really helps out because then people know to give you particular things that you might need to help with the job. For instance, the job I'm now got, they have an occupational health team, and they carried out a full-on phone interview with me about my needs and what I might need to help me in the job. For instance, I mentioned loud noises I don't particularly like. If they're continuous, it's fine, but if they're like a sudden loud bang, I get very distracted. And in order to help with that, they said that every time the fire alarm test is going off per week, they will let me know, so I won't be so alarmed that there's going to be a sudden loud noise. I also need order in my day. I need to have like a list of tasks, preferably in order, but if not, I can organise them. An overview of what I'll be dealing with in the day, and they said they could provide that. So things like that would really help if you disclose beforehand that you have autism, because you'll be able to get this help and these allowances when you finally start your job. Also, prepare for any questions. I know that's like the most basic advice in the world. Questions that they use in interviews are horrendously not simple. They're a complex, as I've said many times, social dance, and you have to properly prepare for what they mean. Sometimes they'll ask a question like, why did you apply for this job? And the first thing I would want to say is, because I want money. But what they really want to hear is, how can what you do or like your traits and skills help with the job? But why don't they just ask that? I don't know. You might want to do a bit of Googling, a bit of forum searching for like, these are the common questions they ask in interviews and what they actually mean. Another thing that really helps is visualization. So you've got to kind of visualize yourself in the job. You've got to kind of immerse yourself in the role before you even have the interview. That can really help because then you're kind of already in the mindset. This is what my day will look like. These are the people I might be around. You know, you won't know that. But you've got to kind of visualize it. With anxiety, it will help with like thinking about the change, because change, I've come to realize quite recently, is like my buzzword of fear. I frigging hate change, and any slight change completely derails me. This helps prepare for the change, because you'll be like, oh, I'll be getting up at this time and this is the routine I'll have and this is how I'll get to work. I do love Google Maps. It's very fun. Plan how you get to work. Use public transport, driving, whatever you can do. By the way, update on the driving thing. Didn't pass my test, but I am redoing it in November. Scary times. Before the interview actually happens, they may offer you different versions of the interview. So you may have a video call, particularly in the times of COVID, or it may be a phone interview, or it may be even an in-person interview. Out of those 3 options, I would say my favourite is the video interview because you kind of get the face-to-face without having to be in the same place. That rhymes. You get to be in your house, which is always nice because it's a comforting place. And you get the benefit of kind of pretending you're doing eye contact even though you're actually not. And you can kind of never really tell where people are looking on video calls, can you? You kind of guess. So if you get the option to choose, I would definitely say video call. This is something that I always forget to do, but before you actually do an interview, it's great to do like a power pose about a few minutes before you actually go on the call or like go in the room where the interview is. There's a particular pose they always recommend to do, which is like this. And I know it looks really cheesy and silly and like you're a superhero, but it genuinely makes you feel more confident. I used to find doing that kind of thing really hard because I've got such bad anxiety. Even doing that, I'd be like, oh my God, I look an idiot, like everyone's looking at me. If you're doing it in your own house, I'd even be like, what if someone walked in and saw me just doing this? But you got to get over that because honestly, it really does help. And it's a bit yoga-y really because there's parts of yoga where you stand in like mountain pose. Very similar. It makes you feel a lot more relaxed. And obviously breathing techniques and meditation and things like that can always help just before you go into an interview. Or rereading your notes, having like a comfortable area to sit. Annoyingly, in the interview for the job that thankfully I did get, there was a lot of building work going on, and the place I wanted to sit, which is my normal place in the kitchen because that's my spot, was so noisy I had to move, and that was kind of stressful. So try and avoid that if possible. I know you can't always. Life gets in the way, and so do builders. During the interview, it's terrifying. Have at least 2 answers for every question or 2 scenarios for every question. They often ask in interviews about how you dealt with something at work before in like your previous job. So you've got to really rack your brains. You've got to think about a situation in which you helped a customer, for instance, in a certain way. And this is what I did because I had a retail job. I was like, these are 2 scenarios that I can apply to this question, and I like properly memorized it. It's like a memory test. Another thing, which is kind of obvious, is bring your notes with you. I mean, I brought a notebook with me. I find that interviews in which I bring my notes or like a notebook go a lot better, both in the way that I speak, because then I don't have to like rack my brains to remember things, and also because it makes you look more professional. The interviewers are probably looking at you like, you know what you're talking about, you know what you're doing because you've prepared for it. So a manual little notebook or something would be very handy. Also make notes during the interview. Like I kind of have to do that anyway because I'm a very visual person, so I need to write down what I hear, otherwise I can't retain it. You should see my notes from uni. There are like pages and pages of notes, and they're all like tiny writing, so I was trying to write everything they said. Remember to be polite, obviously. I mean, sometimes these neurotypical behaviours, we've got to be like, hello, how are you? And oh yes, please, and thank you, and then and it is kind of frustrating because you're like, I want to get to the point, but you got to just, you know, battle through and be as polite as possible. Another thing that sort of scares me, mostly because I've got ADHD, so like I think way too quickly and like my thoughts are quicker than my mouth, but you've got to make some room to think, and they actually allow that. Like obviously not like a minute long, but maybe up to 10 seconds. If you want to sit there and just be like, I'm going to think about my answer, and maybe you can even preface the silence with that, they give you that room, and it also makes you look thoughtful, which is always a good quality. Be open about your autism, I've already said that, or at least any sensory difficulties. Have great questions at the end for the interviewer. So a good one I always ask is, what are the provisions for autistic people in your workplace? That's a really good one. There might be trained mental health personnel on the site, which is great. Another thing to ask is, what are the next steps? What are the next stages? Like, I know it's quite a generic question. It's always nice to know an exact time frame for when you might hear back from the interview people. Afterwards, you can breathe. You've done it. You have done an interview. You might want to email them and ask how you could have improved your interview technique. Like sometimes workplaces get back to you, sometimes they don't. When they tell you what the next stages are, write them down in bullet points so you know the exact time frame of when you're like going to be hearing back from them, etc. Maybe even set a reminder on your phone for when they're going to get back to you, because sometimes, well, most of the time they'll phone you and you might get an unknown number on your phone and just hang up, but it's actually them. And also congratulate yourself. Like, interviews are so tricky, they are so difficult. Amount of preparation you have to do for them, regardless of whether you're autistic or not, is a very odd part of society. I kind of wish that interviews were a lot more informal. I remember in the Girl with the Dragon Tattoo books, she's heavily coded as autistic, but she gets her job because she has a massive portfolio of work, and portfolios work so much better for autistic people, because it's like, this is my physical manifestation of what I can do, because, you know, if we lack in social skills in some way, this will more than make up for it, you know? Tips for interviewers or employers that want to hire autistic people. Give the option of a video call, like I've already mentioned. That can really help us because we can be in a familiar environment that we find comfortable. We might also just do better because we don't have to be forced to make eye contact. Leading on from that, less eye contact does not mean we're not listening. If anything, it probably means we're listening more. This is something that didn't really come up in my retail job that often, which is surprising, but I would have very bad eye contact with customers and I thought I'd get told off for it, and no one really did tell me off because I think they knew I was listening. Yeah, my eye contact is not good, because if I'm making eye contact with you, I am probably not being able to listen. I've got to like process in my own time what you're saying, and if I have the additional eye contact thing, I'm like, I don't know what you're saying. We need straightforward questions. Why did you apply for us? Can be changed to, have you got any passions or interests which will help you in this job? Another thing I quite liked about my interview for the job that I now have is that they structured the interview very well. So there were different parts. They literally said the order of what the events would be. So the first part of the interview would be the 5-minute presentation. Then it would be the questions. It's nice to have kind of order and know like when people will be speaking, like what questions they might be asking, who they work as, what's their job, etc. Another thing, ask if the conditions of the room are okay. So if you're actually in an in-person interview, there are some aspects of some rooms that I'm like, can you please change them? Sometimes there's something in a room and neurotypical people won't notice it. For instance, when I set this room up, I had to move a ticking clock into my kitchen because it was driving me absolutely nuts. And like, no one would actually notice that unless you're autistic, because you've got very hypersensitive hearing. So they could possibly move another annoying noise if they can. So noises can be really irritating, certain smells can be irritating, so try not to have your interview in a room next to like a canteen or something, or a cafeteria, because that might be food smell aroma. Is it clean, friendly? I find that the actual vibe of the interview can help. So like if it's very formal and strict, it can actually really freak out some autistic people. I know I would. Make them feel comfortable and have a more informal setup, and that can really help us bring out our special quirks and our personalities that are very unique and beautiful, and would help with the job because, you know, we're an injection of different into the job. Also, treat us with compassion, like we're just human beings. We have an extra layer of difficulty, but we are, you know, adults. Don't baby us. Some of the world's greatest inventors and entrepreneurs and scientists have been autistic, and where would we be in the world if we didn't have them? Good point, eh? I hope I provided enough help and tips for you guys, whether you're autistic or you're trying to employ autistic people. Please give the video a like. That's the little thumbs up button. Thank you for watching again. Please leave a comment. What kind of jobs do you want to get into? I love hearing about people's special interests. Everyone has like really different, specific special interests. So let me know. And have a nice life, everyone. Oh yeah, follow me on Instagram, whatever you want to do, really. It's up to you, isn't it, really? I will see y'all later. See you later, alligators. Bye. There's a fly in here. There's 2 flies in here.